This episode of Dad is Not a Noun. I want to thank today's sponsor, the Real Dads Network, 11th annual Real Dads Network Daddy Daughter Dance.
The daddy-daughter dance means so much to me because my dad means so much to me. It's our special day every year when we get to dress up and dance and just have fun. I like helping my dad get dressed. He thinks he looks cool, but I show him what cool is when we get to the dance floor.
Daddy's girl. I'm a daddy's girl. I'm a daddy's girl. And you know.
You every advantage I found, couldn't find a better fit for them, along with my crown. And since the baton was passed, I've been down, cause failing's not an option, and dad is not a noun, not at all.
Welcome to another episode of Dad is Not a Noun, changing the narrative for men of color and fatherhood, as well as changing the narrative on the things I care about. And today, what I care about is flip the script. What is flip the script? Flip the script. It was a campaign to change the narrative of men of color and fatherhood. And one of the unsung heroes of that movement, I would call it a movement. People could call it whatever they want to call it, but I'm going to call it a movement. I have the awesome brother, Jason Wallace, with me. He was the former director of the D.C. Mayor Office of Men, Fathers, and Boys, and he's with me today. Brother Jason,
How
the
you
mic
doing?
is hot.
What's
How
going
you doing,
on?
brother?
Thanks for having me. Not only thanks for having me, I truly appreciate you being a part of the Flip the Script campaign, because it wouldn't have been as successful as it was had it not been for influencers, podcasters, and you were like one of, I want to say 6 or so or 5. It was a very short list of folks that we had involved that really pushed it from a small office campaign within the mayor's office to 20 million impressions a month for 11 months. So I appreciate your help on that.
No, thank you for reaching out to me, and I appreciate that. But my first question to you, brother, how's your heart?
My heart. I mean, I appreciate. I mean, this is a great question, right? Because it really gets into the person outside of like who I am and my position and my role. I would say joyous. I mean, I think it's something that's important to me. It was a friend of mine. A friend of mine asked me, I was talking to her about things that she did and hobbies. And I'm like, why are you doing that? Like it's not making any money. It's not leading to a particular goal. Like, why are you doing this? And she told me, because it brings me joy. And then it really hit. And she was like, what do you do that brings you joy? And it was crazy, without even thinking about it, I said, I don't deserve joy. I said that out of my mouth. And I said it because I'm thinking about, as a father, as a husband, I got all these things I got to do. I got to do all of, I got to pick this up. And I can't put myself in a position to enjoy anything or have, pleasant anything until I get all of these things done. Till my house is provided and I got the money coming in and I got my kids are good and my wife is good. And at that point in time, then I can deserve joy. And she told me, she was like, you deserve joy. You deserve joy. And it really hit me that I said that without even thinking of it. And since that point, I have been intentional about having joy in my life. And joy could be me watching something, me reading something, me joining you on this podcast. Like, what brings me joy? Let's identify that. And then now let's move into steps to do that on a daily basis, not just on my birthday and Christmas,
True. And I think I like where you were coming from there, because it was one phrase I thought was interesting that I said in a previous podcast, but I forgot where I got it. It's like, instead of waking up thinking, I got to do it, you come in with that mindset that I'm waking up, I'm doing things that I want to do.
That I want to do. Exactly. That I
And I
want
love
to
to
do.
do.
You ain't got to be I got to do this, I got to do that. Like I get to enjoy these things. I love making food for I cook almost every breakfast I cook for my family.
Nice.
And in more than half the dinners, but it's not because it's like I like to cook. It's relaxing for me. And I don't have to, I get to, and it's something that is truly important. I have a podcast as well called Lyrics and Lattes, where we extract self-development tips from rap lyrics. And I had a guest on named Kariga Bailey who taught me something. Check him out, Kariga Bailey. and he taught me something about like how you look at yourself internally, right? And he said that he was going through a situation, I won't get into his particular problem, but he talked about it. And he was talking about how he was being a human doing and not a human being. And
Mm.
it really struck, because it's like you can get into this dad mode to where you're just doing, and you're this human doing, but you're not a human being, of like recognizing what you need as a person, and also realizing that you getting that joy, you being that person that gets the things that you need to, to make you happy, to make you peaceful, to make you restful, is a direct relationship to how you can support your family and as you can support your children. You can't support your children and be the best dad you can be if you're not a good person, like if you're not well on the inside. And that's mental health, that's physical health, that's who you spend your time with. You have to be a full 360 person before you could even think about like being whole for somebody else. So it's important, not just for yourself, it's important for your kids to be a whole version of you. One of the things in my title at the mayor's office was fathers, men, and boys, but it didn't have husbands in it. And it's like, it's so important for your spouse for you to be, that's one thing I would have added. Like, as long as that title was, talking about how you can be a good husband, boyfriend, like, son, like all these things make up who you are. And the people that you're serving that's around you, you can't if you ain't taking care of you.
And that's facts, and it's so true. And I thank you for bringing it up, because I think that's important. And I love what you were doing in the position you were in, because you were changing the narrative for Men of Color Fatherhood. Is
Yeah.
that you show that men are faithful to their wife and their extraordinary dads. So, like, just talk about, why was that so important for you? Why was that position as director important to you?
Yeah, it was one of those things. I was at the mayor's office, and and so the Office of Fathers, Men, and Boys is an agency, right? So I led an agency. I was on the mayor's cabinet, specifically around issues around men and boys. And in that umbrella is a lot of other things, So I led the My Brother's Keeper initiative through DC. I also led a bunch of different things, but specifically, if you look at the data around how Black men are portrayed, how Hispanic men are portrayed in the media, I mean, over 50% of the time, Hispanic immigrants are portrayed as criminals in the media. Like, this is ridiculous. And Black men are portrayed as not being, supporters of the household, or not being fathers to their children. Or you see these stats about single women, and I think that's something that's so tricky, right? Because you see the stats about single Black women, and you assume that the father is not involved because she's single. Like, your relationship status has no bearings on if that father is involved or not involved.
Yeah.
So the goal was to dispel the myths of the absent Black father, the absent Hispanic father, and really dig down to like, and let me explain why, right? Because if me, and if you're around Black men and you see these things on the media, it doesn't affect you as much, right? As an adult, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't know anything else, the perception that's given to you becomes your reality, right?
Right.
And it could be dangerous. So if you see in the court system with judges, and they don't have any Black men that they see, and they go into court making life decisions on if you're gonna see your kid or not, they're looking at the perception of what's been given to them. This is how advertising works. Like, advertising is a $1 billion industry for a reason. If you put images of something over and over and over again, eventually that person will buy it.
Yes.
And that person could be a judge. That person can be a police officer. That person can be a social worker. So it is extremely important that we put positive images up that reflect reality, that reflect the CDC report showing what's actually real, versus what Hollywood is telling us. Like, you put these positive images up of good fathers, right? Good fathers. And we had one person, right? Johnny Bailey, good friend. Johnny he was a father, yes, but his wife was pregnant. His wife was like she was like 10 months pregnant. She was about to pop. He brought her down. She was like, I think they had the baby, I want to say 2 weeks after the photo shoot. but like at the time that he was the only person that didn't have a child in his photo. It was just him and his pregnant wife, and those photos were amazing, and it was important to show fatherhood at that stage.
Right.
Fatherhood doesn't start when you just have a kid. Fatherhood, if you look at the maternal infant health rates specifically on in Black women, it is like it. First off, it's already pretty bad when it comes to the Black women as a general, but in general, but when fathers are included in that process, it's better.
Yeah.
It's better for that mental health. It's better for that child. It's better for that the mom. It's better for it's completely better. So having shown it from that stage all the way to we had one of our the police officer that also did. He had older kids, and it's like showing it throughout the entire process of childhood. Fatherhood is important. It's valued, and there's statistical data that backs that up. So the hardest part was convincing people that it was important in the mayor's office. It was like people were like, what? You want to put a bunch of Black men on buses? Like, I'm telling you, this is gonna be it. I'm telling you. And we got the funding for it through OSSI, which is the Office of the Superintendent in DC, the state superintendent. DC is weird because it has because it's a city,
Right.
but it's also a district, and it's also like a state, even though it's not a state, but it runs like one. But getting that support, and we covered 329 ads across the city. I mean, literally, I'm not sure if you were here in DC during that time, but it was like buses, trains, metro stops, screens. If you go downtown to like Chinatown, that huge screen, we took over that whole screen.
Wow.
We flooded the market with positive images of Black and brown dads, and it was important.
And it was awesome too. But also when you talked about the CDC report, last year I had Dr. Ron Missy on.
Mm-hmm.
He's the man behind that report.
Okay.
And we had a great conversation on it, and he was talking how people cherry pick the report without actually reading the full report.
Exactly.
And he broke down that you have this percentage of women that's single, but he also said that the dads are in their life, but they're not living there. They're not in the home.
Yeah.
But that don't mean that they're not there for the kids. They live in a different home.
Yeah, and some people.
So he used the phrase "inhabited, uninhabited."
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't put that into the discussion. So like you were saying, how 70% or this amount of Black women are single, but they don't put in the equation that he said inhabited and uninhabited.
Exactly. Dads, I mean, and some of these dads, are moving. I mean, I have a friend of mine that went through a situation like that. And, the dad moved a block away, that's, or I have another friend of mine that's in the same situation, and the dad moved literally walking distance. It was like right around the corner. So he saw his kids every single day. He picked them up every single day. And my brother, for instance, my brother raised his kids, and he was the one that had them. And then the wife moved close by, but he had them in his house. So it's like people's family makeup is completely different. But I see cases about, somebody could be a bad husband or a bad boyfriend. It doesn't make them a bad father. And people that have made mistakes in their relationship, and, the person that they're with is now holding their kid as a, as a kind of a chip to kind of make them hurt or have this pain. It doesn't hurt the dad as much as it hurts the kid. And these kids eventually get to that point.
And I totally agree with that. And then also I think too is that the flip the script played a role in the presidential campaign too.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. You brought up some stuff. Yeah, it did. So and I give you some of the stuff that that wasn't actually out in Front Street. I definitely forgot about that. So essentially, Julian Castro was running for president, And if you gotta go, Julian Castro, former mayor of San Antonio, Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. Um, um, he weighed in on the initiative. So he jumped in. This is like he literally got off stage, one of his debates, and then posted up, flipped the script, hashtag flip the script, had a picture of him and his children on. And people think it was just like fathers and boys. Like, no, it's for fathers and their children. And sometimes we had mentors do it, like people that were mentors, uncles, grandfathers. But he posted up a picture of him and his child and his two children on every platform. He had it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I think he went back to MySpace and posted it. Like, this guy really pushed it, tagged the mayor to it, and then which prompted Cory Booker, who was also running for president at the time, to then talk about it and push it. And then once that happened, it took another level, right? And we're getting celebrities. We had DL Hughley send us a note, and we had Jeff Johnson, and it's like we're hitting. We had, I think Redman sent something out to us. It was just like it was so many people that were like, "Oh, this is pretty amazing," and we want to be a part of this. And then influencers that were at one place got to another place and all just took off because they were a part of the initiative. And it was great to see so many people. It was every single day we would reshare every post that somebody sent us, right? And it was me and my colleague Michael Dotson, who is next level dope. And we would spend, each of us, an hour every morning sharing what we got from us, right? It was every single day, every single morning for about, I want to say about 3 months or so.
Yeah.
We were spending an hour of our time sharing on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, what people are sending us, their images, their photos. It was so many people that were a part of this. Churches got involved, and it was like you wouldn't believe how many people was just like moved by this movement from this small agency within DC. We were getting people from other states, other countries. It was phenomenal.
And it was phenomenal to see from a distance too. See how it just took off like wildfire. It just took like those 2 posts, and then everybody wanted to show their normalcy that yes, they are in our lives. Especially Cory Booker's story about his father.
Yeah.
That little letter he wrote on Twitter. I think it took like 3 Twitter pages or something.
Yep. Yep.
But he showed like how much his father meant to him.
Yeah, and and we got a lot of that because I think at first we were getting a lot of men that were sharing their children.
Right.
Then we started getting wives that were sharing their they're sharing their husbands, and then people that were sharing their fathers that weren't on Instagram, and it really took off. And we hit national news. Across the country pretty quickly.
And then one of my favorite, I wouldn't say quotes, but I think one of the things you said that what brings you joy is inspiring your son.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, did your son see everything? What was going on? Like, did you see his reaction? And what was your reaction?
Yeah, he was pretty young then. He was like 2 or 3 years old at the time. And I remember we drove by a bus and he looked up and saw his picture on it. And it was like, that's me. And I have a video. I took a video. I need to post that. I have a video of his reaction to looking up and seeing a bus with his, like, and it's huge. Like, it's full spread. It's him. And he was so surprised. He was so surprised to see his face, and then his friends saw him, and it was like a thing, and it wasn't just a bus, it was a metro station, it was here, it was there. And we had about, I want to say 16 dads participate. I had one guy, man. I have a guy I know, a friend of mine named Mike Wordy in DC. This guy is, I think we got lunch or something, and I was just telling him about the campaign, right? And this is way before it had started. This is way before anybody had known about it. This is like, I'm working on it. And he was like, "Whoa, that's a dope idea. Like, when's the photo shoot?" I'm like, "Oh, I did the photo shoot last week." And he was like, "Man, I really wanted to be a part of that. I wanted to do it. I want to do it." And we left lunch, and then he texted me after, like, "Hey, man, like, how can I be a part of this?" Wow. And I was like, "We already did the photo shoot." And he was like, "Can you send me the photo? And if I do my own photo shoot, and I hired my own photographer. Will you let me be in it? And I was like, yeah, if you make it look like the rest of these. And I sent him the pictures. In the same week, he went out and did his own photo shoot
Wow.
that he paid for on his own dime. And he sent me the exact same style of photo with him and his daughter. He has 3 now, but at the time he only had 1. And I gave him the biggest ad because of that. So if you walk downtown, right outside of the metro station next to the White House,
Okay.
it's like this ridiculously sized ad with his face on it and his daughter's face.
That's
And
dope.
it was an amazing story. So yeah.
And so pulling it to full circle, like
Yeah.
you talk about that mindset of deserving joy.
Yeah.
That moment right there, that was your deserved joy because the work that you put in, the brothers that came together to make this campaign what it into the history of the fatherhood movement. Like when you talk about the history of the fatherhood movement, you know, you talk about the Million Man March. You
Yeah.
had other things. You had, and now you got flip the script. Like
Yeah.
just put that into your head, like how like enormous
Yeah.
that plays in that story.
And it's also like it was a springboard, right? Because like we're an agency, so that was one of our initiatives that we did was around putting positive images around Black men, fatherhood for Black and brown men. But we also had other initiatives, so that was our biggest thing, right? And I think one of the things that happened, right, is that because it was so huge, it really overshadowed a lot of the other work that we did there. One
Mm.
of the things that we did was we partnered with Facebook for a series called The Manuscript that promoted, mental health for Black and brown men. I mean, for men of color, really, because we had Asian men, we had different men on there, and we talked about like suicidal thoughts and depression and how to stay faithful to your spouse. Like it was like we really got deep. And Facebook paid for the whole thing. We were in their studios. They produced a Red Table Talk, so it was just like it was a well-produced show. And then we also did we partnered with Google for something called Legacy Speaks, and we had like talked about generational wealth building. We brought a billionaire, Don Peoples, and his son to come in and talk about wealth building and for their family and how they can give and share that to other people. We packed the house out on that event. We also did Sinbad and his son. Like, Sinbad's not doing well right now, but he came out, did it. I mean, and we booked Master P, but pandemic and stuff happened. But
Yeah.
like we really did so. I mean, one of the things that I'm most proud of that doesn't get as much light is that we created an initiative specifically for men that were fighting in the courts to see their children. And we got a bunch of law firms to do pro bono to work with us. And we created a session where they were able to come and meet not only with them, with the lawyers about their specific cases, but meet with some best practices about picking your kids up and like we really dug deep into the work and to ensure that you look at DC is a place for fathers. DC is a place for mothers and children and families. That's one of the things that I did when I started. When the mayor she'd always say, it's a city. She'd always say for mothers and mothers and children, and you hear mothers and children, and it's like, no, I get what you're trying to do to help support mothers and children. It's important, but it excludes the father. It's
Yeah.
mothers, children, fathers, families. We're here
Yes.
for families, and you cannot have you cannot have a whole family with a broken man.
Yeah.
If you are a man, wife, kids, and you cannot support that woman and that child and that household be sold and good and everything so positive, if that man is broken, you can't do it. It's not possible. So creating initiatives that supports that whole family was so important. And it wasn't just my joy, it was the joy from others. I mean, seeing, Ben James, his ad was on, across the in downtown DC. Him and his son went down there and they sent a video and they were ecstatic about it. Also, Tolson, you might have had him on the show at one point. Dr. Tolson came on. His family, him and his son was posted on there. So it was so many men that pulled joy from that. And we got a lot of negativity. I mean, you would be surprised. I mean, you would think with a positive campaign, we got some negativity. And but the positivity prevailed and we showed essentially what was real. you know.
And you did, man, and I appreciate you, and that's why I wanted you to come
We
on the
did.
platform. We
We
did,
did. We
but
did.
we did,
You
but
did
I
it.
just
You did
wanted.
it too. You was a part of it.
True. Thank you, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate you, and I just wanted to give you your flowers because I sometimes when we talk about history, especially with Dr. King
Yeah.
birthday, MLK Day come up, and I think it's important we, celebrate Dr. King, but sometimes we forget about the unsung heroes of the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people don't know their names that played a critical role. And so I wanted this platform to be a place for like yourself, like the unsung heroes, just to share their story, to share your narrative, and let people know that yes, there's a face behind like the people who make things happen. And that's why I wanted you on. And I appreciate you for jumping on, man.
Yeah. I appreciate you for having me. It means a lot.
No, anytime, man. So before we end this episode, what words of wisdom do you have or for out there for dads out there?
I mean, I would say that what you have is enough. I think that far too often I do this thing every single year, and it's a tradition that I do, and I post it online every year for Christmas. I get my kids band-aids, right?
Right.
And I get them a bunch of things, of course,
Right.
but I get them band-aids, and I record their reaction to getting band-aids. And
Mhm.
my kids are 2, 5, 1, 4, like this is, and I record their reaction. They open the band-aids up. They're super excited. They're super excited. They love kids love band-aids. They're putting them on. They get to play with them. Usually it's like only you get to use them. You only get to use them when something happens, but now they're playing with them. And I use this as an example to show that it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. And you may think that wherever you are right now as a father, oh, I don't have this, I don't have that. I learned that in DC that a lot of dads didn't do activities with their kids because they didn't have the resources to do it. So we would create this thing called Father Fun Days, and we would create these resources and give tickets out to games and have dads come out, and they would come out. But like in addition to that is sharing that it doesn't require much. You can just make up a game with a ball and nothing else. That doesn't really make a lot of sense, and these kids will play. You can tell a joke at a certain age, your kids will laugh. Kids, you can go for a walk, and if you don't have much else, let me tell you this. This is my math equation. $80 at Five Below and $20 at Dollar Tree equals a very Merry Christmas. A
That's
very
right.
Merry Christmas. Like even you cut that in half, equals a very Merry Christmas. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't take much. And to fathers, I want to say that you are enough. Like literally your presence, you being there, you being loving, you being supportive, you being there. You don't have to have all of the stuff and all of the dads that they got on Instagram, all the things that they're doing. You being caring, asking them about their day, giving them a hug from time to time, telling them that you love them, telling them that you're proud of them. Like those small things mean a lot to a kid. You're enough. That's it. You enough.
True that. And to a grown ass kid, I thank you for spending time with me. And real talk before we end it, how can people find you?
Yeah, you could check out, you could find me. You know what? Check out the podcast, Lyrics and Lattes podcast. You can go to at Lyrics and Lattes. You'll be able to find me there or at Jason Wallace DC on Instagram.
Dope. And those links will be in the description below. Jason, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for joining on. I appreciate you. Real talk. I love you, man. Keep doing great work because is what you did was phenomenal. The team did was phenomenal. And I'm gonna start watching that podcast. Your podcast.
Come check it out. Come check it out. We
I'm
just
gonna
had
check it out. I'm
we just
there.
interviewed Rakim and Ja Rule, and it was Lil C's and Royce the 5'9". It was cool. It was dope. Yeah.
I'm gonna check that out, man. I'm a support, man. That's what it's all about, man.
Appreciate you, bro.
All right, and we're out. Peace.